What if your whole neighborhood was secretly watching you, pitying you, calling you patient like it was some kind of medal, and you had absolutely no clue why? Picture this. I'm Maya, 28, finally settled into a cute little house on a quiet cul-de-sac after a messy breakup that left me wanting nothing more than peace. I wave at people, say hi, keep the lawn decent. Normal stuff. But from day one, the compliments felt off. You're handling everything so well, Maya. Maya, your patience is honestly inspiring. We're all so proud of how strong you're being. I'd laugh it off. Thought maybe they meant my job, long hours, tight deadlines, or how I never snapped at the HOA lady about the trash can rules. I even joked once, yeah, I waited 45 minutes for pizza delivery last week. Guess that makes me a saint. Everyone smiled politely. Too politely. Then came the neighborhood meeting. Folding chairs, fluorescent lights, the usual mix of casseroles and small talk. Mrs. Elena, the one who always knows everybody's business, stands up, grabs my arm like she's steadying a falling vase, leans in close, and whispers loud enough for the whole room to hear. You've been so patient, dear. Every head turns. Every single person nods slowly, like they're in on the same secret. My stomach drops. I was completely clueless. But when I finally opened my mouth and asked the question no one expected, patient about what? The silence was deafening. And that's when Mr. Carlos, the guy who's lived here 30 years and speaks maybe twice a decade, cleared his throat. The weirdness didn't explode overnight. It crept in like fog you don't notice until your windshield is useless. First, it was little comments. I'd be watering the plants on my porch, and Mrs. Elena would shuffle by in her housecoat, stop, tilt her head, and sigh the deepest, most theatrical sigh you've ever heard. Maya, your patience, it's really something special. I'd smile, confused, and say thanks like an idiot. What else do you do? Then the casseroles started showing up. Tinfoil trays on my doorstep with post-it notes. Thought you could use this. You're handling so much. Handling what? I hadn't told anyone I was stressed. My job was busy, sure, but whose isn't? I figured maybe someone saw me come home late a few nights and assumed I was burning out. At the 4th of July barbecue, it hit peak awkward. Lisa, the neighborhood association president who runs everything like it's the UN, pulled me aside near the cooler. She lowered her voice, eyes soft and serious. We're all just so proud of how you're dealing with it, Maya. Truly. I laughed, nervous, too loud, and asked, dealing with what? The new recycling rules. She patted my shoulder like I was a wounded puppy and walked away. Have you ever had people look at you with pity when you feel perfectly fine? It's unsettling, like they can see a storm cloud over your head that you can't. I started paying attention. The nods when I walked by. The way conversations hushed when I approached the mailbox. The extra offers to keep an eye on the house when I traveled for work. It felt caring but also creepy. I brushed it off as small-town kindness gone overboard. Until that community meeting rolled around. The folding chairs were set up in the rec center. Fluorescent buzz overhead. Someone brought lemon bars. Normal Tuesday night stuff. Then Mrs. Elena stood up. Have you ever walked into a room and felt every eye lock on you like you're the main character in a movie you didn't audition for? That's exactly what happened at the neighborhood meeting. The rec center smelled like coffee and lemon bars. People were already seated in those metal folding chairs that squeak when you shift. I slid to a spot near the back, planning to zone out during the usual HOA updates, new mailbox colors, speed bump complaints, the thrilling stuff. Then Mrs. Elena stood up. She didn't raise her hand, didn't wait for Lisa to call on her. She just rose slowly, turned toward me, and walked over like she was about to deliver bad news to a family member. Before I could even say hi, her hand clamped around my forearm. Tight. Possessive. Her voice dropped to a stage whisper that carried to every corner of the room. You've been so patient, dear. The words hung there. Heavy. Loaded. I blinked. Smiled on reflex. Thanks. That's when the nodding started. Slow. Solemn. Like they were all agreeing on a eulogy. Lisa dabbed her eye with a napkin. The guy who always mows at dawn gave me a thumbs up that felt more like a sympathy card. Even the teenagers in the corner stopped scrolling and looked over with something close to respect. My brain short-circuited. Patient about what? The fact that my internet drops every rainstorm? The stray cat that keeps pooping in my flower bed? The way I still haven't repainted the front door after 2 years? I forced a laugh. Guys, seriously. Patient about what? Silence. Thick, uncomfortable silence. Mrs. Elena squeezed my arm harder. Oh, honey. We all know. My pulse kicked up. Heat crept up my neck. Were they talking about my ex? Did someone find out about the breakup and decide I was some tragic figure? Or worse, did they think I was sick, broke, falling apart behind closed doors? I opened my mouth to push harder. That's when Mr. Carlos, the man who's lived on this street longer than most of us have been alive, the one who waves once and then disappears into his garage, shifted in his chair. He cleared his throat. What if the secret everyone was keeping wasn't about you breaking, but about someone else refusing to leave you alone? Mr. Carlos didn't stand right away. He just sat there a second longer, hands folded on his lap like he was deciding whether the truth was worth the chaos it would cause. Then he rose, slow, deliberate, and every person in that room seemed to hold their breath. He looked straight at me. No pity.
Just calm certainty.
Maya, he said, voice low but clear. We've all been waiting for you to snap. I laughed once, sharp, confused. Snap? About what? He didn't blink. About your ex, Derek. The one who moved in 2 houses down 6 months after you kicked him out. The room tilted. My mouth went dry. Derek? Here? In this neighborhood? The same Derek who'd spent our last month together yelling through doors, texting me 50 times a day after I blocked him, showing up at my old apartment until the landlord threatened a restraining order? Mr. Carlos kept going. We saw his car first. Same black SUV, with the dented bumper. Then we heard the arguments late at night, through open windows. Him begging. You telling him to leave. We thought you were being patient, letting him hang around, trying to work it out quietly instead of making a scene. We didn't want to embarrass you. Contradiction hit like a slap. Patient? I hadn't seen Derek in over a year. Hadn't heard his voice. Hadn't known he was anywhere near me. Mrs. Elena nodded vigorously. We started watching. Extra porch lights. Group texts when his car was parked too long. Lisa even looked up restraining order rules just in case. They'd been protecting me from a threat I didn't know existed. My hands started shaking. Not from fear, from the sheer absurdity of it. They thought I was enduring a stalker ex next door, out of kindness, while I'd been blissfully clueless, thinking my fresh start was actually fresh. I looked around at their faces. Sympathy, worry, relief that the secret was finally out. Then Mr. Carlos added the line that made my blood run cold. But the real reason we stayed quiet? Derek told us you asked him to move close. Said you were working things out and didn't want the neighborhood drama. Imagine marching across a dark cul-de-sac at 10 o'clock at night, heart hammering, every porch light suddenly feeling like a spotlight on your rage. That's what I did. I didn't knock politely. I pounded on Derek's door until the porch light snapped on and he opened it. Same smirk he used to wear when he thought he'd won an argument. Took you long enough to notice, he said, leaning against the frame like this was casual reunion night. I didn't let him finish the sentence. You moved here? You told the neighbors we were working things out? That I wanted you close? His smirk flickered. I was protecting you, Maya. After everything, I figured you'd need someone nearby. In case things got bad again.
Protecting me.
From what, myself? From the life I built without him? The contradictions crashed in. He'd spread the patient girlfriend story, so if I ever complained, the neighborhood would see him as the devoted ex, not the problem. He'd parked his car in plain sight, argued loud enough to be heard, all while playing the long game of looking like the victim. Mrs. Elena had recorded one of his late-night voicemails, creepy, pleading, borderline threatening. Lisa had screenshots of texts he'd sent her, asking her to keep an eye on Maya because I was fragile right now. The group had quietly warned him off more than once. He ignored them. I told him to leave. For good. This time with witnesses. He laughed, nervous now. You're overreacting. I turned and walked away. Behind me, doors opened. Neighbors stepped onto porches. Silent support. By morning, a police report was filed. Warning issued. Moving truck scheduled. I finally felt the weight lift. But the craziest part? The thing that still keeps me up some nights? Derek wasn't the only one who'd been waiting for me to snap. Ever wonder what happens when the person you thought was the victim turns out to be the one everyone was quietly rooting for? That final line from the meeting still echoes in my head. Derek wasn't just lurking. He'd been banking on my silence. On me staying patient forever so he could rewrite the story. Devoted ex who never gave up, while I was the unstable one who needed watching. But the neighbors? They'd seen through it long before I did. After the police left with their warning, the cul-de-sac changed. Porch lights stayed on later. Mrs. Elena started bringing actual coffee instead of pity casseroles. Lisa invited me to the next HOA meeting, not as the fragile newcomer, but as someone who'd finally spoken up. Mr. Carlos even gave me a rare nod and said, "Good for you, kid." The compliments stopped being cryptic. Now they're real. "You handled it like a boss. We're glad you're okay." No whispers. No nods behind my back. I circle back to that first question I asked you. What if your neighborhood was secretly pitying you for something you didn't even know was happening? Turns out they weren't pitying me at all. They were waiting for me to see what they already knew, that sometimes the biggest strength isn't endless patience. It's knowing when to stop. And the real twist? The patience they admired most wasn't mine. It was theirs for holding the line until I was ready to fight back. If you've ever had a patient label that hid something way darker or lighter, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Smash that like if this made you side-eye your own neighbors just a little. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss when the quiet one finally speaks. See you in the next story.